Welcome to Parenting Unscripted. I am your host, Katie Collett. A big thank you to Norfolk Public Schools for sponsoring this episode. I know that I say a lot that I'm really excited about episodes of this, but I am so pumped today because I have a very good friend of mine. So this is near and dear to my heart. This is Chris LaLonge. He is on today. Chris, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So Chris is a local dad, husband, medically retired firefighter, just also happens to be the author of a new book. This is Scars with Purpose. So, Chris, we always start off by sharing information about our families. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your family?
Married with two kids. I, fortunate enough, was married on an even number year. Highly recommend it. 2010. So we've been married 15 years now. 15 years next month.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so two kids. My son is 12 and we have a daughter that's 8. So one kid in middle school, one kid in elementary school. So in the middle of all the things, they're very active and trying to keep them busy and,
Yes.
have all the issues that everybody else has.
Absolutely. Parenting is so much fun. And then you're trying to divide and conquer with two. And I know your kids are wildly busy and going all over the place. So
Yes.
That's fantastic. I want to really get into it, though, because I really think that this is a topic that people are going to be so interested in. You've gone through so much to get to this point and being in the studio. But really, I want to talk about the launch point for writing this book. And of course, that is you were a Portsmouth firefighter. You were shot on the job. That's not something that we hear all of the time. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Why don't you share with everyone a bit about that moment and what that was like?
The event itself, violence against first responders is a real thing. Unfortunately, it's becoming more common, but it wasn't that type of situation. It wasn't a mental health crisis or some type of barricade situation. We were called to the residence for a different reason. There was a power line down, very common. We were there for about an hour. Dominion has to get on scene and secure the scene and we have to essentially babysit.
Yeah, right.
Make sure nobody drives over the lines and all the kids stay away from the live power line. So we were doing exactly that, and Dominion had already cleared the hazard. So we were about to leave the scene. And unbeknownst to us, some neighbors and some citizens had some disagreements and had some history, and there were some restraining orders involved. And that incident, the power line down in the street, created a scenario to where they had to essentially engage and pass each other. So an incident happened where it got violent, and I had to step in from somebody in a very compromising situation. Yeah. And then that's when the shots rang out. And you
were hit, right? Can you explain where you were?
Yeah.
Injured?
So unfortunately, I was hit with the very first shot. So there was no warning. We didn't know anybody had a firearm on scene.
Right.
So it was a huge surprise.
Yeah.
to us. And several more shots were fired after that. But just the suddenness of it and the no warning, you didn't see it coming. And so I was shot through my arm, and not knowing what happened or where it happened, where it came from, and just the suddenness of it. But it was just an unfortunate situation.
And in your book, you go into detail, so I'll let everyone read much more about the details in the book. But I want to know, you go to the hospital, you are treated, you're actually home, right, early the next morning with your wife, who obviously met you at the hospital. What was that morning like for you? And did you and your wife talk about how you were going to address this with the kids?
Yeah, so it all happened so fast, and you have these short conversations, so to speak. I got home about 3:00 in the morning, and of course 6 a.m. comes quickly.
Yes.
Kids are getting up and ready to go to school, and due to the nature of my job, I typically wasn't home in the mornings if we were on our station, weeks and we weren't on our breaks.
Right.
I'm gone before they go to school, and I don't even get back until they get to school the next day. So I don't see them. So it was certainly a shock to them when they come downstairs. I couldn't really lay flat, so I chose to rest in our downstairs recliner, of course. And we knew that the time would come, and they came downstairs. And, what's Dad doing home? And we just kind of, Dad got hurt, yesterday, but he's going to be fine. And we kind of just left it at that, And they say you should always tell the kids the truth, but my kids were 4 and 8 at the time. That's just something I'm not going to do at that age, because at the time we thought I was going to go back to work. We didn't want them to have to worry about that happening again, and but then they started putting the pieces together a little later on, and they asking more in-depth questions, and so it was something we opted to wait to tell them.
Do you feel like in the end that was the right decision until you could wrap your head around it yourself?
I do, because at the time, again, we thought we were going to, or I thought I was going to go back to work, and we didn't, and it was all about, their well-being, and we didn't want them to worry too much. And yes, like even in hindsight, I know they say the truth, but I'm sorry, my 4 and 8 year old, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
In that instance, in that way. So
and
we have to be very careful.
They say they, in air quotes, whoever they is, say the truth. But I mean, when it is a 4 and 8 year old, I think that at that moment, it needs to be a little bit of a gentle doctored truth. Because I feel like no matter what, even though you were there, you were present, they could see that you were injured, but you were alive. I can't imagine as a young child hearing that my dad got shot.
Yeah, and part of it is you want to take away their worries too. You don't want to sugarcoat anything, but you don't want them unnecessarily worried either about things. And we kind of gently, show them how the real world, so to speak, is. You try to gently have those conversations, and it just, when everything's thrown at you so fast like that, you're never ready for it. So you're just kind of learning things on the fly and doing what your gut tells you to do.
Right. And I think that doing things on the fly when you're a parent, that sort of just goes with the whole job that we have. Hey, on the other side of the break, we're going to talk more about your injury. You have a really active family, very athletic family, and you had to make some adjustments to make sure you could still be there for your kids in the way that you want to be there. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. We will be right back with Chris LaLonge on Parenting Unscripted.
Whether you're already working in education or aspiring to, then say yes to NPS. Norfolk Public Schools are currently hiring in the following positions. NPS offers the highest salaries and sign-on bonuses in Hampton Roads, plus a work lifestyle you'll love. Say yes to NPS.
Welcome back to Parenting Unscripted. I am your host, Katie Collett, joined by my good friend, Chris LaLonge. He is a father, author, and a now medically retired firefighter. So, Chris, we were just explaining to everyone in our last segment about how you were shot when you were on the job. And now we're talking about parenting through crisis, through pain, and how you managed to deal with all of that. Your life was forever changed, not just because you were shot, but your arm and hand, eventually you learned, were never going to be the same. So how did you mentally cope with that, all while trying to parent and be a husband at the same time?
Well, there's no easy answer for that, and there's no one thing I can point to. I mean, you're learning on the fly and trying to manage. It's just, can I get through another day? And trying to find something that works for you. Right. Trying to search, and you just keep searching and you keep searching. The pain management I talked about in the book, how I have a new respect for people with deal with that on a chronic basis every day. Right. I relate it to a rock concert in your head going on at all times. Yeah. And I'm not sure, I'd love to ask people, I had a terrible case of swimmer's ear when I was like 10 years old. Mm-hmm. So anytime I have pain, my ear rings. And I don't know if that's a normal response or if that's because I had, that issue or something. Right. So honestly, I physically have the ear ring,
all the time
when the pain happens. Right. Yeah. So, I have good days and bad days. But it's a challenge trying to focus through all that, and just never giving up on finding finding ways that you can manage it.
Right.
Finding ways you can manage it.
What did you do to try and gather your emotions so you could still be present in your family life?
Well, I just dove completely into family life.
Yeah.
Not that that was my only option, but
Yeah.
that was kind of my gateway to some type of output. So I was coaching. Coaching both kids. I'm doing all the things. I make sure I'm taking them to school every day, being really actively involved. And that's not as a distraction. It's this is my purpose now.
Yeah.
And you have to really dive into that. And it was a terrible situation, but it also gave me an opportunity to do those things. Without the situation, I wouldn't have been able to do those things.
Yeah, you could be really involved with your kids.
Yeah, so I just dove 100% in, and again, not to distract anything, but just to have say, hey, this is my purpose now, and accepting that, and it so to speak, worked out for us and the kids.
Mm-hmm. I really connected with the part in the book where you were talking about being in pain. And, with my multiple sclerosis, I mean, that, pain 24/7, on different times if there's a flare up. And when you said in your book that your pain felt like having barbed wire for veins, like a pit bull's jaw clamped on your arm every second, I felt that. I feel that right now as we talk with my hands, just an excruciating pain. And the thing is, when you never know if it's going to end, you as just a human, but then also as a parent have to think, okay, so if this is my life now, how do I do this? How do I adjust? And did you feel like you really had to make a cognizant effort to parent well? Or was it just like, I don't have any other choice?
Yeah, that's a tough question because it's never really one thing. You really have searching for that outlet for you that gives you that focus. And I found that heat, and I talked about it in my book, especially with nerve pain, because it's so dynamic. It's so different for everybody. There's no one thing. And, I talked about also where, the one pharmaceutical they have for us for nerve pain, I couldn't take because it stunts nerve growth. And that's exactly what I didn't need at the time. They wanted my nerves to grow. So, when you're left with a culmination of just, these broken nerve endings essentially that aren't permanently connected. And heat has been my saving grace. I've told all my physical therapists, I've told the doctors, I'm like, this works. This does work. So I actually contacted a manufacturer of a heated glove. They were very responsive because I purchased the first pair. Yeah. They were, heard my story. They sent me a new pair of the later generation. It's been great for me. And honestly, and I talk about it in the book, how I don't know where I'd be right now without it, because it is that crucial for me as far as pain management.
Yeah, that's huge. And then it also kind of frees you up to kind of have that moment where you're like, okay, pain-free, it's a little easier to parent and to do everything that you need to do with your kids. I want to focus on your early days of being a firefighter. In chapter 4 of your book, you share that after you gained some experience as a first responder, your personality and emotions shifted a bit. Can you explain why that is? And did that shift again when you became a dad?
Yeah, so you're just, I talked about in the book about you're introduced into this new world.
Yeah.
You had this narrow vision, and you had your experiences and your family and your upbringing. And then you enter the first responder world, and you see a much broader spectrum of society and the depths of it, and the pain and the violence and the sickness. And then we come home from our shifts and have to incorporate into family life where there's a lot of emotions and there's a lot of all the things, because that's the life that they know, and you feel like there's overreactions to things, and you're like, and I even talked about in my book about is everybody breathing, is anybody having trouble?
Yes.
Okay, can we calm down and take a little breath here? And there's a challenge with that, because I don't want to negate their feelings as well, because that is their true emotions. But giving you just a broader perspective on things, on what really is a problem and what isn't, and it's a challenge.
Right. Yeah, because you want to make sure that you validate
Right.
their feelings as well. But at the same time, you're like, you're breathing. You're doing A-okay. In Scars with Purpose, you talk about a child who had a seatbelt tangled around their neck, and the more they would move, the tighter it got. And you did everything you could to calm him down until you were able to figure out a solution. Did becoming a father change or impact how you handle situations with children? And if so, how did it do that?
It absolutely does. If you have if you have children of your own, your patience is a little.
Yes, sir.
Well, at least it should be. At least it should be. It's not always. But your patience and your comfort and your experience in working those conditions, what the child needs to hear. You know what they're thinking or feeling, and that's it. It helps, and yes, I was changed, of course. When kids happen, I mean, all of us, whether we have kids or not, of course, on the job have a soft spot for children because you see their innocence, and they are completely innocent, whatever situation they are in. So of course, when I had my son, you start feeling different things. But when I had my daughter, something else happened. Is all I can say. And when I'm in these situations, or even just we're watching a movie, I'm like, sorry,
getting dusty in this room.
Getting a little, and it does change that, especially with that father-daughter relationship. Just I can't explain it. Just something changes in you,
and it's a beautiful thing. When we get to the other side of the break, you talk a lot in your book about faith, and I want to make sure that we address that, but also you found a bit of a solution to the pain and the issues that you were having in your hand that I think would be great to share with everybody. And I know you brought this device along that you created. So in just a couple of minutes, we'll be right back, and we are going to talk more about both of those things with Chris LaLonge, who is author of Scars with Purpose. Welcome back to Parenting Unscripted. We are once again joined by Chris LaLonge, father, author, retired firefighter. And Chris, in the book, Scars with Purpose, you talk about revisiting your faith and then getting even deeper into your faith than I really kind of think even before. Especially you talk about being visited in your dreams by your aunt and your grandfather who had passed away. And it's such a beautiful way to weave that into the book. I cried multiple times. I'm not even going to lie when you talked about it. So you talk about the importance of the connection that we have with people even after they're gone. In that vein, what kind of legacy do you hope that you can leave for your children?
Yeah, and part of that, what I think is what I should be leaving is based on what I was left with too. You see that connective chain that's kind of supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to dive too much into it in the book, but we are told or taught that there is no connection with the other side as far as up above. However, I don't want to limit what angels and God are capable of.
Right.
So as far as that aspect, as far as I had a family member visit me, there really is kind of a cutoff there. At least that's what the Bible teaches us. But certainly don't want to limit those things either. And really just carrying the memories of it and what you were taught. And why you were taught those things. And I don't remember everything from family, but you remember the important things. You remember the first time you did things. You remember, my grandfather, who is a big part of the book, taught me to appreciate growing your own garden. And having, there's just an appreciation for things when you provide yourself, with your own produce and everything from, first time I swung a golf club to, fishing and he taught me gun safety. And so just, having those things, the memories of them and, where those were rooted from too.
I think it's so great too, because I always see you and your wife, Mallory, and how you make it a point to be present for your kids. And I really think that that's a legacy that they're going to see as well and understand when it comes time maybe for them to become parents, the importance of just the simplicity of allowing yourself to be present. And I love that about you too all the time. And it's so wonderful to see. How do you want faith to play a role in your family moving forward?
Yeah, so I talked about in the book how I kind of stepped away from that for a while,
right.
Seeing chaos in the world and having some questions myself. And having kids myself, I had forced me to kind of reevaluate these things and these types of incidents that happen. You're like, okay, what now? And where do I put my my drive, and what is my direction?
Yeah.
And I have to have some type of foundation to operate off of. And I saw that I just we all just want to set our kids up for success, right?
That's true.
So,
yeah.
and okay, well, what is my foundation? What am I teaching these kids, and why am I teaching them, and where does that come from? And so it all had to be deeply rooted into something. And I didn't want to just, go on a whim.
Right.
Essentially, it's this incident sent me down this path to kind of reevaluate everything.
Mm-hmm. And I really do think it's important for kids to know that there is a higher power looking out for them, and that kindness and love and everything we learn in faith really can play a very important role in the development of people. I do think that is huge.
And it really answers a lot of the whys too. You know, I get whys from my children a lot. Why? So if you just keep going and keep going, it helps me. It doesn't answer all the questions, but it certainly has a foundation and a framework to answer some of those whys.
Agreed. It helps to process that. In the book, I found it really moving when you talked about the purpose buried in the pain. You noticed your son's football got bigger, your daughter's basketball grew in size, and you had trouble gripping them with your injured hand. So rather than sit around and wallow in self-pity, you did something about it. And so much research, and I know that you touch about it all in the book, so this is going to be an abbreviated version, but you actually came up with basically a medical device, and it's patent pending, right?
Yes.
And you have it here today. So explain this device and how it has changed your life.
Yeah, so I talked about in the book about me just problem and goal oriented as far as, okay, what can we do here?
Right.
And I didn't want to. It's not something I set out to do, but I set out to look for a solution. And hands are just so very complicated, and the angles and the structure and the complexity and the delicateness of them. So I just had this issue. I said, I can't spread my fingers. I need to be able to spread my fingers. And brainstormed and worked with engineers and just kind of dove all the way in as far as, finding that purpose again. And, maybe my pain and my purpose and my experience can help other people.
Right.
But if I can fix myself, maybe I can fix some other people. So I designed, this structure for my hand. But the great thing about it is it still allows the flexibility. So I wouldn't be able to spread my fingers, without wearing this. I can kind of simplify. It would look like this. So
right.
Without wearing this is what my hand would look like.
Turn your hand to the side there, Chris, so they can kind of see how it would curl. The other hand, when you're demonstrating it would look like.
Yes, what it would look like. It would just kind of curl. So it just provides me a structure. But the greatest thing about it is that I can still make a fist and have 100% flexibility and pliability, and it's 100% silicone, so it really adapts to the user and the size of the fingers and what you need. And would really love to get to a point where we can make pediatric versions and all the things. But this is what we're starting out with, and we're gonna see where this goes.
That's so exciting. I mean, the research and the thought process, because that's not your field, but you really jumped in and said, hey, let's figure this out.
No, neither was authoring. that wasn't a field either. But, finding that purpose and really diving in head first and finding something that's meaningful.
Yeah, I think that also, when it comes to parenting, is huge. And I just have to say that when your children see, even if they didn't quite realize how hard you work to even create that, as they get older, they're going to realize all of the time and effort and the love you put into that.
They've seen all the hours, and like you said, they're not going to notice now. But I'm hoping one day that part of those memories and those foundations are instilled in them.
That it will be. Kids are always watching. Chris LaLonge, thank you so much for being on the show today. The book is Scars with Purpose. This is what that looks like. You can get that on Amazon. So just go put that in your bin and make sure you get that delivered to your house. It's quite the read. I cried roughly 4 times. Such a great story and really impactful. So please remember that you can watch new episodes of Parenting Unscripted every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. And again, a big thank you to Norfolk Public Schools for sponsoring this episode. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Be good.